And what it means is the things that we did a few years back may not be relevant for us. And looking at one aspect of it is not necessarily serving anyone.
We've been through a period where a lot of people thought they were doing transformations just on efficiency they knew what their purpose was and they just were being more efficient about it. And that's great work. But we're in a time where there's so much externally shifting that's dangerous work because it could be based on flawed assumptions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode, and where Bernie and I work through the big picture of transformation. So, transformation is something beyond all of us. The world as we live in has changed constantly for a long period of time, and we have experienced cultures come in, kingdoms come in, and things transform. And we have also experienced many things that change, and change is the only thing that remains constant. So, in the last few years, we have seen a lot of change, and also it has provided a once in a lifetime opportunity for many of us to work in transformation. So, let's work through what it actually means for us as people and for us as organization. So, Bernie, welcome to this interesting session, and thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you very much, Judith. As you know, you and I have been chatting about this for a while, so I'm delighted to be here with you, bringing this conversation to life.
Thank you, Bernie, and it's an honor to host you as always. And your history or what you have done always fascinates me, and things that you have actually been involved in transformation of people and many organizations. So, as you work through the transformation, Bernie, you've seen a lot of things that happen. So, and the frameworks that come in and go. So, I love the framework that you taught me, which is the steeple framework. So, we'll hear more about that one from you.
That's very good. So it's really interesting where to start these conversations, isn't it, Judith? And I think we're at a time. A lot of my reflection with people like us that are really trying to do our best in this space is that the world really is on the move, and how do we? What are we focusing on, and are we just implementing the things that we've implemented before or not? And so, yeah, my big reflection for accomplished leaders like us at the moment is that the world is shifting a lot, and that therefore we need to be thinking about our assumptions. And that actually is where a lot of this conversation goes a bit deeper than the technical conversation that sometimes we can launch into, because my technical insights might be sitting on top of many other assumptions. And am I actually sort of going back deeper and looking at them?
That is very true, right? So sometimes in my world, that is the ERP world, people tend to talk a lot about technology, and sometimes technology takes the front seat. But the world around, if we look at it, we have social things that change, and the framework has changed, and what it means is the things that we did a few years back may not be relevant for us, and looking at one aspect of it is not necessarily serving anyone. So if we explain this a bit or explore a bit deeper on this, so I like the way you put it, steeple framework, the social, technological, economical, environmental, political, legal, and ethical. So this is a very good framework for all of us as we work through our transformation or organizational. So I'll hear more about your thoughts.
So stepping back into that, so working with a lot of leaders at the moment, going, well, how do we remain fit for purpose? We've got really good intentions. We've got a nice strategy, strategic intentions, but remaining fit for purpose with all the things that are shifting around us. How do we raise our awareness for that? And the premise for that is that that's based on, like, am I really still relevant? So, like, the good work I did in the past, is it still relevant today? And do you remember, I think you and I chatted about this before, that the Stephen Covey thing about making sure that the ladder is on the right wall. Doesn't matter how fast you go up if it is on the wrong wall, right? So that effectiveness over efficiency, effectiveness being the bigger picture, efficiency being a subset. And we've been through a period where a lot of people thought they were doing transformations just on efficiency they knew what their purpose was and they just were being more efficient about it. And that's great work. But we're in a time where there's so much externally shifting that's dangerous work because it could be based on flawed assumptions. So that's where I talk about how a tool that I use and a lot of people I work with use is to go, take a breath and then go, well, what do we know that's shifting through the social lens? Because I might have a technology orientation, but maybe it's going to be social lens factors that might change for me. Or so socially, working from anywhere is shifting the way that people work. In our part of the world, the populations are moving, between different countries and stuff in a way that's increased. There's lots of different social changes. And then tech at the moment, you and I were chatting about this the other day. If you go back a decade ago, or a bit over a decade ago, all of the shifts, the exponential shifts in things becoming social and mobile and on the cloud and all this sort of stuff that happened in that last decade, but they're now exponential this decade, and they're converging together. And then there's AI sort of on top of that as well. And so really all of our assumptions, what I was an expert in 10 years ago, could be so out of date now.
Exactly.
So, and then, you go, as you said, going through all those the economics, we're at a period where people might have been happy to put up with that service at that cost in the past, no longer happy with that. There's all these different things that are assumptions to check.
And also, this gives us a lot of opportunities, right? Sometimes we tend to forget the opportunities this all the shifts have created. So are we? So sometimes it's good to take a step back and have it a conscious pause, or most people call it stage zero, where we look at, are we staying relevant? Like, is our contribution or the way we are interacting with the vendors, is it relevant for this time and age? And are we serving people around us right? So, and it gives us all these perspectives, not necessarily vendors, suppliers, and the suppliers of the suppliers. So technology, yes, it has given us a lot of reach, but what does this actually mean for us? And how are we serving our stakeholders in the right or most relevant way? So it could be customers, it could be employees, it could be everyone. So it brings a whole bunch of opportunities as well to the plate, something that we never had the option to experience before.
I love that you called out the opportunity part, because obviously in a shifting strategic environment, there is risks and opportunities, and the opportunities are pretty exciting in these times for the people who see them, right? So that's a benefit of this same conversation, because good work that I may have been doing as a purpose-led leader might now be able to explode because of technology changing, or because of social support or other things. So it is great to shine the light on the opportunity to expand your purpose and impact.
Yeah, and that is beautiful. So if we embrace the opportunity, we also stay relevant for those to come. So for many of us,
Yeah.
or for many of us working on transformation, it could be a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I was talking to you and talking to other leaders. We go, how many of us have an opportunity to do multiple transformations in a lifetime? So professionals, we do, because that's what we do. We help organizations. But most of the participants, it could be a once in a lifetime opportunity. So it's an opportunity to leave a legacy, as you say, identify something that's beautiful and something for everyone to follow.
I used to make that observation, and as you know, I sort of connected with transformation leaders from around the world in that sort of professional space, and those who sought these opportunities did more, and those who were running and sort of staying in their industry used to have like that once in a generational type of cadence. My observation is that that's probably happening every decade. So even I observe, if you stay in your same industry, across 3 decades, you're probably going to lead through 3 transformative periods, is my current observation.
Yeah, that is exactly true, right? So it's and the other way of looking at it, as we talked about earlier, it's the opportunity to expand our influence, not just within our organizations, beyond our organizations, beyond ourselves, and sometimes even beyond the immediate vendors or suppliers or partners that we are working with. So using the butterfly effect, it's very real, right? So any small impact to our supplier would have impacted multiple people down the stream or up the stream. So it's like all those things are very relevant. So we've seen many examples in the past wherein the Suez Canal, very very small thing, an incident for X number of days impacted the world for, let's say, 3, 4 months, and took a much longer time to recover.
Yes.
So we've got, in the recent past, we've got many examples of things like that butterfly effect being seen in real life. So, and also with the positive thing that we do, have the power to expand very quickly. So, yeah, and you would have seen a lot of that, Bernie, and from organizations and from individuals. It'd be good to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, it's just so true, isn't it? My big reflection on that at the moment is that there's so many external factors that sometimes this conversation is just around what happens and how I respond to it, and that is definitely part of it. But the other part that I also like to remind myself and remind the other people I'm working with is the intentional part, where we can intentionally make some of these things happen, and that actually is a real opportunity for system leaders like you and I and the people that are watching this. How do we plant intentional shifts that have the ripple effect or the butterfly effect, and even some, particularly in the collaboration space, being more open to different collaborations, I think is actually a good example of that, where there's things that problems that were impossible to solve from my current perspective that can be solved if I put other people around that same problem. And that actually is really interesting, because I think one of the recurring themes I've been chatting with people about is conundrums.
Yeah.
And industry conundrums. And like, the whole thing about a conundrum is that it's a puzzle that cannot be solved from the current perspective.
Yeah.
And you and I know that all the time we hit these impasses. We go, oh my God, how am I ever going to get around this? I cannot see a way around this. And those opportunities are, if I'm a collaborator and open to other people, that actually can have unanticipated positive benefits, right? Because they might see an angle that we haven't seen, and
Yes.
all of a sudden we've got a solution that's working. And that actually is, I think, an exciting thing for the encouragement of more collaboration in these times, because of how many conundrums we face with all of these shifting things all at once.
Exactly right. So you and I talked about the age care, a typical problem in the Western world, and if we apply the mathematical models or the normal puzzle solving models, there is no one answer to it, or that problem doesn't get solved by the information that's available or the perspectives that's available. But we can apply other perspectives, take from cultures of the past who have always had this problem and have worked out a solution. So, I mean, translating that to very practical transformations. So it's like one of the organizations that you and I know of where we solved this problem of reporting. Yes, 300 plus reports, extremely hard to process. Applying a different perspectives, we came with, 4 or 5 are the ones that are actually relevant for the board to make that decision, look for dashboards or something. So these are just examples. So shift the thinking and be open to just different perspectives. There is many ways to solve a problem.
And feeding into that, one of the conversations that I like around this sort of space is that actually, when I've been an expert, I actually do get locked into my perspective, because it is where my expertise is based. But actual, how a lot of conversations we have about how transformation is hard. It is hard to get over my expertise sometimes, or your expertise, or someone else's expertise. But if we build muscle around being open to go beyond our expertise, that muscle becomes useful in many, many different opportunities. So while a lot of these conversations are big and systemic, actually looking back at ourselves as individuals is where I think that's actually a ripple effect that you don't know where it's going to go necessarily, but I do know that collaborating, even you and I collaborating, you and I chatting about different things, we could come up with an answer that we never knew was never going to happen at the start of the meeting or start of the gathering, right? And the more that you get good at doing that, that actually is for me, that's a certain thing in an uncertain world. I know that actually the better I get at collaborating with others and understanding more perspectives, the more complex problems I'll be a part of solving, even if I don't
Yes,
know what the answer is at the start.
exactly right. So it's building muscle around that collaboration and being open for that collaboration. So because we never know what problems we are going to face or what problems we are going to solve or what makes us
Yep.
ready for the next steps. So that is great. And sometimes, Bernie, we talk about people or any of the transformations where there is over importance to one aspect, example, technology. So how do we as humans or as leaders who lead transformation ensure that we are rounded and we are also staying very much grounded and not letting one aspect take over?
Yeah, my experience on that, and like working with hundreds of really good leaders, is that I think that starts with just the awareness of like we all have our bias and tendencies and our interest areas. And in the technology space, a lot of us have a really strong lens on looking at technology, right? So going, that's great, but there are other angles. And how do we? And just to be open to the fact that yeah, that I am not sort of seeing all the angles. So therefore, how do I build mechanisms and relationships that help me see other ways, being conscious of that? And so a little bit of it is actually owning up to the fact that I don't know everything, you don't know everything, he doesn't know everything, she doesn't know everything. So how do we go, okay, now that I know that, I always knew it, but now that you actually declare it, how can I create environments where I'm open to those other inputs and I'm giving space to those other inputs and being aware of the fact that my own pattern would attract me to certain things, but I need to be able to stand back a little bit more and see angles that maybe my own pursuit wouldn't take me to, if that makes sense. Just
Yeah,
like, I think in a technology, technology crowd, we're going to be way more excited about that. But then really, as organizational leaders, the social changes and the economic changes are just, you know, also massively going on at the same time.
and it's grounding ourselves and remaining true to the perspectives, right? So I was reading Ecclesiastes this morning, and one of the sayings from there: "What has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again, and there is nothing new under the sun." So it just puts things in perspective. Yes, things are going to change, and we ensure we are changing with it, and we are staying and remaining relevant to the whole thing. And that brings us to the most important aspect of it, right? So, how do we stay open and how do we stay relevant? And the last one is, how do we truly make a difference? Because all of us are on earth, put on earth for a reason, and transformation leaders, especially, we are there for a reason and we are serving a bigger purpose. So, what can we do to make sure we are remaining true to our purpose, remaining true to our general stakeholders and keeping us honest?
Yeah, yeah. This conversation, I mean, this is a age-old conversation, so we're definitely confronted with it nowadays. But I think so every previous generation has been as well, right? That actually there are some things that really matter to me that are really important, but day-to-day living, particularly in the modern world with all of our notifications, drags us over to responding to all sorts of uh, short-term priorities, right? So I think the awareness to actually keep reminding ourselves like what actually is important, what really matters to me, because there's too many things I could be doing. And if I don't watch myself, I will be doing those things. I'll be, you know, responding to a text message notification I got, or checking social media notifications you got, or that, there's all these things that pull us to that. But are they the things that really matter? And do I have a method to keep reminding myself of what really matters and making sure that that remains current? So that, as you know, because you do know that I do, I obsess on that with myself and I obsess on that with everyone, all the teams we work with, where we actually go, well, is this what really matters? If it isn't, maybe it's a B priority and we just move it back. But if it's what really matters, that's what we must do.
And that's very true, right? Be it individuals or organizations. So have our priorities really clear, and it's always a conscious choice of what we want. Do we need to address it, or is it a problem that is going to solve itself? So, multiple ways
There's a
to look at things. Yeah,
yeah. There's a great conversation going on at the moment that in many ways, looking at the efficiency movement that we've all been a part of in the Western world for the last probably 3 decades in particular, that we've actually been chasing sort of a fake productivity, like all these little hacks that we've got, all these little sort of things to sort of speed up this process or speed up that process, but they're not really giving us more time for deeper, more impactful thought. And so I've been, I think I've mentioned here before, Cal Newport with his book around deep work, and more recently, he's taken that study a bit further into sort of slow productivity, where he's sort of saying that, yeah, that our hustle, our back-to-back meetings, our always on the phone, chasing up things, flying here, flying there, is it actually achieving meaningful progress? And he's got a whole study of how not really, right? Like a lot of people that are having meaningful progress are actually a lot more calm and in the moment, a lot more prioritizing, a lot more giving space to the really important things and blocking out the less important. And why that topic's so relevant, I think, nowadays, is that there's so many things that are coming at us without us thinking about them. Like, because technology is clever and it's using psychological prompts to keep to take our attention, right? So we need to be the masters of our own attention.
yeah. And it's about having the right measures and having the right focus and staying relevant
Yeah,
and being, conscious of who matters more than most and what matters most. So yeah, it's very simple things, right? It's simple things that helps us stay on track. So yeah, and it's a great discussion, Bernie, and thank you. Very different perspectives, and I'm sure it helps us and those listening to us with very different perspectives and help setting things up for success. So transformation, let's acknowledge it's beyond us. It impacts a lot more things that we can think of, and it's also a huge opportunity to create a difference. And for those who choose to, it's an opportunity to leave a legacy. Let's make sure we leave the right one, and let's make sure we are staying relevant, and let's make sure we are measuring ourselves with the right measures. So thank you. Stay tuned for more.